Speaking of Hollywood, let's talk next about the Hollywood Ripper. For those of you who haven't heard of him, he was active between the years of 2001 to 2008 in both Hollywood and later found out Chicago. Let's start with the second victim, Ashley Ellerin. Ashley Ellerin was an LA local who was known to have big parties with lots of friends. She was even casually dating Ashton Kutcher. And they had a date planned for the night of the 2001 Grammys. Ashton called the date to confirm their date, called again at 10:30 just to double check, but Ashley didn't pick up, so he went out to the house. He looked in through the window when she didn't answer and saw what he thought was a puddle of spilled red wine. So he left, assuming that they would connect later. When he discovered that it was not spilled red wine, but actually that Ashley had been brutally murdered, and that was her blood on the kitchen floor where she had been stabbed 47 times, one of the wounds so deep it almost decapitated her, 12 of which would have been fatal on their own. He called the police to let them know what he had seen and about the times of their interactions. Now, they looked into a couple of different people, like the apartment manager who would have had easy access, but they were able to clear Ashton and the apartment manager very quickly as suspects. What they heard from Ashley's friend Chris was that there was a man named Mike that was always just kind of hanging around. He would invite himself into Ashley's home. He would crash her parties. He showed up one time when they were working on a car and said he wanted to help, but just ended up chatting the whole time. And police even disturbingly found a picture of the so-called Mike, lingering in the background of one of her parties and a group picture she was taking with some friends. So they looked into it, later determining that this was a man by the name of Michael Gargiulo. And he was a suspect that they really could not get their hands on very well. At the same time that Hollywood police were looking into the Ashley Ellerin case, Chicago police were looking into a very similar murder of a woman named Trisha Pacascio. Trisha had been stabbed multiple times, 12 times, and there were just a lot of similarities between the two cases. Trisha had actually gotten some DNA under her fingernails from defense wounds, and DNA was still pretty new, so by the time that they were able to test it and determine that it didn't match any of her friends or family or acquaintances, there was only one person left to test, a family friend by the name of Michael Gargiulo, who lived nearby. They tried to get a hold of him, and he escaped their custody because they didn't want to charge him too early and then not be able to retry him if there wasn't enough evidence beyond the DNA match. So Michael decides he's going to keep moving around really frequently. He wants to be hard to find because in 2005, he goes to his next victim, Maria Bruno. He stabbed her 27 times. And it was just this really disturbing MO where they were not finding a lot of solid evidence except all of these blue fibers that they just could not figure out where they were coming from, these tiny little blue fibers. And at Maria's apartment, they found a bootie, like one of those little medical socks that you can put on, and that was to help hide DNA. So they kept that evidence, and in 2008, there was a woman named Michelle Murphy. She literally awoke to a knife being plunged into her chest, but she fought back, managing to get some digs in, and that turned out to be Michael. Thanks to her and the work that was being done by the communicating police departments, they were able to arrest Michael Gargiulo after finding a matching bootie in his attic to the one found at the Maria Bruno crime scene. Michael was sentenced in 2011, and he was convicted and sentenced to death in 2019. In 2024, late 2024, September, he was extradited to Chicago to face charges for the Trisha Pacascio murder. And that is where he still is today.